you're my audience. So there's something you need to know before I do this presentation, so I start with this. How many, this is part of a weight loss talk, part of a nutrition talk, or any of those things I just named, okay? So you're the audience. So, hey, listen, if you're eating food, how do you know if it's a protein, carbohydrate, or fat before you eat it? Do you know what it is? Because you need to know for what we're going to talk about. So here's an easy way to know. You look at the food and you say to yourself, did this food ever have a face, a mother, or go to bathroom? Because if it didn't, it's probably a carbohydrate. Simple enough? So let's try it. Let's say you go to a restaurant and they bring bread on the table. Did that bread ever have a face, a mother, or go to bathroom? No. So what is it? See how easy this is? How about your salad? Did that ever have a face, a mother, or go to bathroom? No. How about a beer? Did that ever have a face? See how easy this is? How about that piece of steak? Did that ever have a face? Oh, so that's a protein. You get the difference? So that's a real easy way to tell. Now there are fats in there, but this is generally what we're talking about. We need fats and we need carbohydrates, okay? Because fats are what give us energy. Carbohydrates are what give us building blocks. That's the Legos that put us together. So we need both of those. Americans eat 6 to 7 times more carbohydrates than protein here in this country, our American diet. So we wind up eating so many carbohydrates and those turn to sugar, and sometimes they're bad sugars. So what we're going to talk about right now is how to get your body running at a high level and how to know what to eat at any given time real easily. So here's how it starts. So this is your sugar level, and this is time. So in the morning, except for eggs, what do most Americans eat for breakfast?
Bacon.
Bacon is protein.
Cereal.
Thank you for that.
Cereal.
Cereals, carbohydrate. Donuts, muffins, pastry, wheatino, bagels, all that stuff. That's all carbohydrates. Most Americans don't have eggs for breakfast, for the most part. So if you have anything other than eggs, you're having a carbohydrate. You haven't eaten all night. So what happens is, you eat the carbohydrates, your sugar goes up, and then it comes down. When that happens, insulin gets released along with it. Insulin goes up, tapers off more slowly. And the insulin's there for a reason. Insulin's job, what insulin does, is it's the actual ferry boat. It takes sugar out of the blood and literally carries it across the artery walls to the cells waiting on the other side. So it's the ferry boat, it's the transporter across the artery walls. So when sugar goes up in your body puts insulin out, so that now you have more carriers to grab the sugar and carry it across the arteries to the cells on the other side. You get that? So this is what happens at breakfast. Right over here, when sugar starts to drop, that's when your body gets the signal you're hungry again. Happens to be about 2 hours later. Well, if this was 8 o'clock in the morning, this is 10 o'clock, hey, it's break time. What do people have for break time?
Coffee.
Soda, coffee with sugar in it probably, soda, crackers, candy, M&Ms, whatever. So now what happens is sugar goes up again, comes down again, insulin goes up again, comes down again, and they're hungry again over here. And by the way, this time of the day, when the sugar drops and then the insulin drops, this time of the day is called a dead zone. And what a dead zone is this. Have you ever walked into a room and go, what did I come in here for? That ever happen to you? You're driving down the road and all of a sudden you just look around and you go, wow, I don't even remember crossing the bridge. Like you actually don't remember the path you took. That's because you're in a dead zone. And dead zones happen because insulin tapers off more slowly than the sugar does. So what happens is, here's breakfast. Starts to come down, you eat again, spikes again. This is noontime, it's lunchtime. We go out and eat our 6 to 7 times more carbohydrates, goes up and down. Then here's 2 o'clock break, happens again. And you know what, by this time, any of you starting to see a pattern develop? So what happens is insulin goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. By this time, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, ever hear of the term hitting a wall? The reason we hit a wall are dead zones start to overlap. And when dead zones overlap, you're like double dead. It takes 3 cups of coffee just to get back to tired again. So it's really getting bad. So at this time of day, you literally should check out. You're useless. People are sleeping on the desk. They're not creative anymore. They're starting to make more mistakes at work. You understand what I'm saying? So this happens all day. So this is breakfast, this is break, this is lunch, this is afternoon break, this is dinner time, this is your bowl of ice cream while you're watching TV, and I know you do it. So I say that to them, and most people go, yeah, I do. You know, so this goes up and goes up. So what happens is this. Insulin goes up in the morning, never gets to go down. Every time it tries to go down, it gets bumped up by another spike. This is a big deal. Big deal for two reasons. One of them, insulin, your body can't make that much all the time. It can make it sometime, but it can't do it all the time. That's one problem. The other problem is insulin at this level is real irritating to the arteries. Any of you know who Wolverine is in the X-Men? Anybody not know? Wolverine's a guy that he's in the comic books, when he gets really mad, these big claws come out of his hand, they're like 3 feet long. So picture Wolverine running down your arteries with his claws doing this. Because that's what insulin does. Insulin at a high level is real irritating. As a matter of fact, technically, they call it chipping. Chipping of the arteries. So insulin damages the arteries. So insulin at a high level damages the arteries, and when the arteries become inflamed, the doors get shut. Now insulin's trying to grab the sugar out of the blood and carry it across the artery walls, but the doors just got shut because the artery's inflamed. The wall has become resistant to the insulin. That's insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the start. It's the first domino of a whole bunch of things. The sugar can't get across to the other side. The cells on the other side that make hormones, repair tissue, build us up, they're starving. They're not getting the sugar. How do they feel? Are they happy or are they tired? If those cells are tired, how do you think we feel? Tired. Ladies and gentlemen, fatigue is the first symptom of insulin resistance. It's the first domino. Now, do you think I have everybody's attention at this point? They're like, I'm tired all the time. No one's ever told me this. I didn't know that. So they didn't get that. So this is the first domino. First domino, we're tired. Now, if the sugar can't get out of the blood because the cell wall, the artery walls are inflamed, and your heart has to pump syrup instead of blood, what do you think happens to your blood pressure? It goes up. Blood pressure is the second domino. It goes up, and it's directly related to that first one. You get that? So now you get this freight train of sugar, and it's going through all your blood vessels, and there's no place to get out because all the exits are blocked. You're tired because the cells aren't getting the sugar. Your heart's doing the best it can to pump it, and you got this freight train of sugar with no stops. It goes all the way to the end, and it dumps it in fat cells because there's no place else to put it. And those fat cells are all around the middle. The test for insulin resistance is measuring around your belly button. If you're a man with a waist bigger than 40 inches, or a woman with a waist bigger than 34 and a half, you're insulin resistant. That's the test. And what they just found out 2 years ago is that, you know how there's different kinds of fat? There's white fat and brown fat and cellulite, we hear all about that. The fat around the middle is white fat. And they just found out white fat is an endocrine organ. White fat produces cortisol. They used to think people's knees, heavy people, their knees would wear out because of their weight. Now they're finding out it's the cortisol that's destroying the joints. Real interesting. So you got somebody big around the middle, they're producing much more cortisol, that's why their joints are starting to get stiff. So can you understand how for a group, this is starting to connect some dots that they never connected because everybody treats everything separately. So first thing that happens, you spike your sugar. Spike your sugar, the insulin goes up. The insulin inflames the arteries. The arteries can no longer carry sugar. The insulin can't carry the sugar and you become insulin resistant. Now you become tired because the cells on the other side can't get the sugar that's supposed to have. The sugar has no place to go, so it goes to fat cells. And you start getting big around the middle. So we start gaining weight. So weight gain is the third domino. Do you see that? Fat cells, we're born with almost all the fat cells we're ever going to have. They get only so big, but then they finally burst. When a fat cell bursts, it releases triglycerides. If you, in your chemistry test, have an elevated triglyceride, that's because you're kind of at an end stage of this process. And you know how many people in the audience know that they have that? Because they all get their blood done. They all know they have elevated triglycerides. So that's what happens with that. So now, along comes cholesterol. When I say the word cholesterol, how many of you get a warm, fuzzy feeling? I mean, the word cholesterol is like the Antichrist, right? I mean, everyone's like, that's an awful thing. Just so you know, cholesterol has almost 3,200 known functions. One of its functions is that cholesterol is an inside Band-Aid for blood vessels. So if you bruise yourself, cholesterol will plaque inside those blood vessels to allow the blood vessel to heal. That's what it does. It sticks to the inside. Let me ask you this. If all of your arteries are inflamed, how much cholesterol does your body ask for?
A lot.
A lot. So cholesterol goes up. When you go see the doctor and they say, oh my God, your cholesterol's through the roof, we've got to do something, they give you a statin drug, right? Did you know that all statin drugs do? It stops the production of cholesterol. It doesn't stop your body asking for it, doesn't stop your body needing it, it just stops the production of it. So that doesn't fix anything, right? And by the way, did you know that since they've been giving statins out, it has not changed the death rate 1%? Nothing, not one particle has not changed the death rate. You go to the hospital, half the people in the hospital have normal cholesterol because they're on a statin. Their number is normal, but their body isn't. Their body is in this state asking for cholesterol and they're not getting it because we're stopping making it. Another thing I point out to people, those of you who are on statins in the audience, do you ever have to have your liver tested? And they all say yes, because they all have liver assays done. I said, do you know why they test your liver? Because this drug is turning your liver to stone. And once it gets so bad, they're going to change it to something else. And people are like, didn't know that. Didn't know that's why they were getting tested. So, do you understand all these dominoes? Let me ask you this. Does it make sense to you, when you go to the doctor and you tell them you've got all this stuff going on, that you're tired, your blood pressure's gone up, that you've got cholesterol, does it make sense to treat one domino? Does it make sense to treat the third domino in and not look at the first two or three? Doesn't make sense at all. So what happens is this. The sugar goes up, insulin can't get carried over, cells are dying, we're tired, cholesterol goes up, blood pressure, triglycerides, we gain weight, and fatigue. And you know what all that leads to? What disease do they call it when you have sugar in your blood? Diabetes. Did you know in the last 10 years, the American Cancer Society is all out of shape, bent out of shape, because cancer's gone up 2%. And they keep saying we're losing the war on cancer. It's gone up 2%. In the last 10 years, type 2 diabetes has gone up 39%. And everyone in the audience is shaking their head because they're all getting it. And they all know it. But can you see how people relate to that? So how do we turn that around? What do we do? Well, here's what we do. There was a great test done. And what they did was, any of you have been on a calorie-restricted diet? Like when you're trying to lose weight? Most of the audience has. And you say, is it true that you have about 12 to 1,500 calories a day? And they all say yes, because that's what they get. So then you say, well, here's what they did. They took two test groups. They gave this test group 3,500 calories a day. And they gave it to them in 3 meals. So it was broken down to 3 meals. This test group got 3,500 calories, but it was broken down to 17 meals. So this group basically grazed. This group basically had their 3 meals a day. This group gained weight. This group lost weight. Same number of calories. Isn't that interesting? And the reason is, this group spiked their calories with only 3 meals. This group grazed it, and what they did by grazing is frequent small meals, their sugar went like this all day. They had a whole bunch of little spikes all day, and when you have a whole bunch of little spikes, now insulin only does this. Well, you know what? 2 things about that. Our body can make this insulin all day, no problem. And the second thing is, insulin at this level doesn't inflame the arteries. So if in only 3 weeks' time, you stop spiking this, and soda is the biggest offender. Soda is a bottle rocket for sugar exploding in your body. So if you can just do this, and then for 3 weeks, the arteries heal. That's how long it takes for arteries to heal. Just 3 weeks, they heal. Hey, what happens? What do you think happens when the arteries heal? So the arteries heal, the door opens up, right? In all the arteries. Now the insulin's in there, the sugar's in there, the sugar starts to get carried across to the other side by the insulin, and now the sugar shows up in the cells. What are these cells doing when the sugar shows up? They're partying, right? They're like, the cavalry just showed up. Like the food's coming in, the energy's coming in. Now they can start making hormones and repair themselves and do all the things it's supposed to do. So all of a sudden, 3 or 4 days into it, people will tell you, if they do this, I have so much more energy. And that's because the cells are partying. So now the sugar's going to the other side, the cells are doing what they're supposed to do, you've got a lot more energy, and you know what? You're not pumping syrup anymore. What happens to the blood pressure? Goes down. And if the sugar's doing what it's supposed to, and doesn't go to the end of the line, what happens to the fat around the middle? It stops going on, it stops getting bigger. What happened to your triglycerides if the fat cells don't explode anymore? It goes away. You get the connections? And let me ask you this. If your arteries aren't inflamed anymore, and your body's not asking for cholesterol, what happens to your cholesterol? It goes to normal, all by itself. Does that make sense to you? So I really want you to think about this when you go see your doctor, when you think about it. Does it make sense for you to be on a blood pressure medicine, on a weight loss medicine, on a cholesterol medicine, and all this, when really, if you can fix the first domino, all the rest stack up? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to this group?
Yeah, sure.
So you can take that talk, and by the way, just so you know, this is how you would get your chemistry back and get everything normal. But if you wanted to lose weight, what you would do is you would nibble, and then you would let yourself get hungry, then you would nibble and let yourself get hungry, and when you allow yourself to feel hungry, your body releases a hormone that releases fat. So for people who are trying to lose weight, grazing and letting themselves get hungry works better, just so you know. But if you're not too worried about that, just doing this, people lose a lot of weight, a lot of weight. So this is what I do. I put this into nutrition talk, food talk, cholesterol talk, blood pressure talk, anything, any of those, it fits in all of them. And people are generally surprised to see that it's all connected because they treat it separately, they think it's all separate. And of course we tie it into chiropractic by talking about how the nervous system runs everything, that when the food starts working and your body starts working, your body can amp up and you can add whatever you want, fulfill. But it always goes back to the chiropractic presentation. Any questions about this?
I would just love to know how do you tie it back to chiropractic from that point, or do I have to make an appointment in your office to find out?
Yes, you do. I brought Sally with me. But what you do is this. After I talk about that, I do something called a brain-body diagram. Have you seen that? That's how I end most of my talks. If I was going to a Rotary Club and I only had 15 minutes to talk, I would just do the brain-body diagram. It's the safety pin cycle essentially. But the brain-body diagram is something that I end everything with, and I tie it into this by saying that let's say, and a lot of you in the room aren't old enough to remember, how many of you remember a Ford Pinto, the car? So, most of you? Do you remember that it's not a really good car, right? So I say, if your body is a beat up, rusted out Ford Pinto, you can put rocket fuel in it, and it's not going anyplace. I mean, no matter what you do, no matter what kind of food you do, even if you do all this, if you don't fix up the car, the machinery, it's not going to work too well. So that's how I segue from almost anything I'm talking about to chiropractic. And what time is it? You're blocking the clock. Oh, no, right here. I got a minute and a half, so this is going to work out time. So.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, so just a real quick brain body. This is something you can talk about for 45 minutes, or you can talk about it for 10 minutes. It's something you can always have in your pocket. It's something that that is just so useful. No matter what you're talking, you can stick it in, and that's how you always get into chiropractic. So what I do is I bring hard coupons like Peter has over here. I have those hard coupons, and I have a quiz, and I start with a quiz, and that gets people engaged and involved. And by the way, when I do this presentation with the stuff I just did, lots of times I'll just stop and I'll say, for a big prize, a hug coupon, who can tell me what I just said about that? And I'll break it down to the important points. So when I'll say, who can tell me what I just said about sugar spiking? And I'll say, well, or the difference is how to tell from a carbohydrate or a protein. And I'll give out hug coupons. So I usually start with a quiz, and I have hug coupons, right? So I'll say, just tell the answer if you know it. Okay, there's something in our head. It's gray, it's ugly. Some people have a lot, some people don't have much. Women say men have none at all. What do you think it is?
Brains.
Brain. Someone says brain, so they got a hug coupon. So, yes, that's right, we have our brain. And our brain talks to our body. So when our brain talks to our body, it does that to the nervous system. And the nerves, by the way, a lot of people think that the nerve is a wire that goes to your heart and a wire that goes to your lungs. That's not what it looks like at all. Did you know if you took away everything, all your muscles, bones, tissues, everything, left just your nervous system, anybody that knows you will still recognize you, except for hair. And you'd be naked, but except for that. But the point is, that's how many nerves we have. So we've got all these nerves where the brain talks to the body and the body talks to the brain, and that communication goes back and forth all the time. And if the brain can talk to the body and the body can talk to the brain, then our body functions. When I say functions, I mean everything functions. How many of you think anxiety, mood swing, depression, bipolar, how many of you think those are like emotional things? And most of a regular audience thinks it is. They all think it's a mental case or something, but truth is, it's not. Those are all chemical things. That's your chemistry out of balance. So when I say everything functions, I mean everything functions. So if our brain can talk to the body, and the body can talk to the brain, and by the way, I am purposely repeating this over and over again. If the brain can talk to the body, and the body can talk to the brain, then our body functions. And when our body functions, we are now in a state of ease. Like at ease, soldier, or it's easy. Our body is in a state of ease. That's how that works. What do you think happens if for some reason something blocks this? If something interferes with that, and now the power, that message can't get back and forth. The brain can't talk to the body, or the body can't talk to the brain. Now what happens is, if the communication breaks down, now our body starts to malfunction. When our body starts to malfunction, when organs stop working and they don't function like they should, now our body isn't in a state of ease, we're in a state of dis-ease, which is where the word disease came from. It's not easy anymore. Things don't flow like they did anymore. And when we're in a state of dis-ease, that's when we get symptoms. Symptoms are signs and signals from different parts of our body telling us something's wrong. The symptom isn't the problem. Never the symptom the problem. If I'm walking down the street and I step on a nail and I have pain in my foot, does it make sense for me to take a painkiller? People get that, you know. They say, no, it makes more sense to take the nail out of my foot. So the pain is just telling me something's wrong. And I ask the audience this. I'll say, hey, you know what? If there were a way that you would never have to feel pain again, ever, how many of you would love that? Everybody raises their hand, everybody. And I'll say, but just think about that. So if you had your hand on a hot stove, wouldn't you want to know? If you fell skiing and you broke your leg, wouldn't you want to know? You know, if you did step on a nail, wouldn't you want to know? And people are like, well, yeah, I guess I would. You know, so they understand pain is something else. So if the brain can talk to the body, body can't talk to the brain, we malfunction, that's where symptoms come from. If you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor, Doc, I've got this, and a symptom I explain more in depth what it is, he'll give you something for the symptom. So if you have pain, what are you going to get? Painkiller. Muscle spasm, you get muscle relaxant. So the doctor gives you something that really works well. It really, really does. And it takes the symptom away. And you say to yourself, oh my God, Doc, you're a genius. I feel so much better. And that's what they think. And they think they're done. But when you explain it this way, you say, so the doctor takes away the symptom. So if this building was on fire and the alarm is burning way out in the street, way out there, and the alarm is loud and people can't stand it, if someone puts a soundproof box over it, does that help? No. If somebody comes and cuts the wires and removes it, does that help? No. So what happens, the building keeps burning. So what we do as chiropractors, what I do, is we get rid of this. And if we can get rid of that, and now the brain can start talking to the body, and the body can start talking to the brain, and that communication starts. Now we're not malfunctioning, we're functioning again. Now our body's back in the state of ease, and this doesn't even happen. Does that make sense? And people get that. So this is a real simple way to talk about how this connects and the connection. And I use this at the end of almost every talk, you know, no matter what I'm talking about, to tie it into what we do. And it works well. And like I said, if I did a Rotary Club or something where I only had a few minutes, I'd probably just do that. You know, that's really all you'd have to do, because people don't get the idea that that the symptom is telling you something else is wrong. That all by itself is a blow-away concept for a lot of people, without being real heavy. Any questions about anything we talked about? Well, I've overstayed by 5 or 7 minutes, so I really appreciate you being here. I'll hang out to answer questions, and because this is a different tribe, and I will answer questions. But thank you so much, Peter, for having me.
Awesome.
And hopefully,